Welcome to the Indian Gaming Association's The New Normal webcast. My name is Lisa Johnson. I'm the conference manager for the Indian Gaming Trade Show and Convention. I'd like to share a few housekeeping tips before we get started. Everyone is muted by default except for our speakers. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question or chat box and they'll be brought up at the end. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Victor Rocha, conference chairman of the Indian Gaming Association.
Thank you, Lisa. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the New Normal. Good morning, your go-to source for insightful discussions on the gaming industry and critical issues affecting Native American tribes across the United States. I'm Victor Rocha. My co-host is Jason Giles, Executive Director for the Indian Gaming Association. And in today's webinar, we're talking to Carlton Saffa, Chief Marketing Officer for the Saracen Casino Resort, located 40 minutes outside of Little Rock, Arkansas, home to 80,000 square foot gaming area, complete with 1,800 slot machines, 40 table games, and a dedicated poker room. Carlton, good to see you, man. How you doing?
Victor, it's good to see you. I last saw you at IGA in San Diego a couple of years ago, where we got to talk about one of my favorite subjects, sports betting. And, that's kind of led us to, I think, what we're going to talk about today. But it is great to see you. And, I admire so much what y'all did in California. DraftKings and FanDuel had no idea what they were messing with when they underestimated all of the heroes of Native America who stepped in and said, not on our watch. So y'all did it right. And I'm proud of what you did. And I think we did it right here, although there wasn't nearly as much money involved. Arkansas ain't California, Victor.
Well, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up because, Arkansas is that little island in a sea of sports, but Arkansas did it different than everyone else. When you like California, you guys got ahead of the ball. You guys saw it coming, and you weren't going to be a victim or run over by these economic studies and lobbyists and lawyers. And, you guys are, when I say you guys, Arkansas, the tribes, the Saracen especially, you guys were the first online with the mobile product. You guys have been out there. And, I think a lot of people in the industry look at Arkansas and say, what if? What if we could do it like that? What if we could, so you guys have really done something just as important as California, no doubt.
Well, the what if is true. I get it a lot. I had a call with a fellow the other day in Michigan, and I got some what ifs from him. And what I continually hear from folks in sports betting who have national partnerships is there's tons of revenue and no profit. And
Right.
We knew that going in. You can cut a deal with FanDuel or DraftKings or BetMGM. One crazy thing, Victor knows this, I name names. A lot of people don't, but I'll just name names, right? So you can cut one of these market access deals with them. But, there's an old saying, I can do bad on my own, right? So
Wow.
if you're only going to get 5% of the business, why take on a partner to do poorly when you can do poorly on your own? And we believed that we could do better ourselves. And I'll tell you this. So Saracen, where I sit, is named after Saracen, a Quapaw hero, a piece of not just history, but folklore for the state of Arkansas, and not just Native American history. I mean, there's a mural in downtown Pine Bluff that long predates this, that refers to Chief Saracen as Arkansas's original hero, right? I mean, it's something that's taught in schools. Saracen is important in Arkansas. Saracen is important to the Quapaw. But this property, like a handful of others in this country, is a commercially owned property owned by a Native American entity, the Quapaw Nation of Oklahoma. And to that end, I just want to brag briefly. Our sports book takes more action than the rest of the sports books in the state combined. We actually weren't first to market, Victor. We were second by about 10 days. We held the product until we had the payments just right, because you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And so we intentionally held it until we had PayPal and some of the credit card options on. But yeah, with that, any given month, we swing from high 50s to as much as 70% of all action is with us. And unlike a deal with a national sports book, we make quite a bit of money at it, as opposed to the 5% they'll throw you at the end. Fun fact, and then I'll shut up about this, my friend.
No, don't. Well, I'm having fun, man.
Yeah.
I'm like, got all these questions.
Well, we do.
I want you to name some more. Where are the bodies?
Yeah,
buried?
nobody talks like, nobody actually gives us real numbers ever.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm the only one.
we're an open book, honestly. And part of it is the nature of being commercially regulated, right? All of our numbers are public. You can get them from the state. They're published every month. But at Saracen, sports betting has meant so much to our business. We've always done robust table games, always. Sports betting is actually our second largest revenue stream. It has displaced tables. So there are 3 casinos in Arkansas, 2 that are near Little Rock, which is the state's capital for politics, for healthcare, for commerce, for banking. You know, Little Rock is really the capital of Little Rock, not just literally, but also in terms of population and in terms of commerce. So we're the closest place to Little Rock. We're the newest casino in the state, and we've always done well with tables. We hired in a lot of heavy hitter folks from Tunica and other places to do things that made sense on the floor. And it's not uncommon to see folks playing $5,000 a hand blackjack here. That just doesn't happen in Arkansas and other places. But despite all of our successes in table games, sports betting is our second largest revenue stream. And you won't find many casinos in America that can say that. And again, it's not because our table games are terrible. It's because our sports book is just off the charts. But yeah, you take more bets than the rest of the folks in the state combined, you're doing something right. And I say that humbly. It could change in a moment, but we can actually say we're Arkansas's favorite sports book and quantify it. I love the guys at Eilers and Kryjek. And to the folks watching this, Eilers doesn't pay me. This isn't, some advertisement for them, but their industry data is amazing. And so we study Eilers. In fact, I'll be at the Eilers briefing at G2E. I mean, they to me are like the McKinsey and the Deloitte and all the other wizards of smart combined. And what they say, we believe. Eilers has us as the 14th largest sports betting brand in America. And we're only 2.5 years old in the sports betting space. So if somebody says you got to have DraftKings to do it right, they're selling you something.
Well,
And
you know,
have
Carl,
mobile. You have
Go ahead.
in-state mobile, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Our biggest market is 4 hours from here in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Oh,
It gave
wow.
us an opportunity to introduce the brand statewide. And, what we did is easily duplicatable. We hired, so y'all know Arkansas, we don't have any professional teams. But what we do have in Arkansas is our own version of a professional team. It's called the Arkansas Razorbacks. It's a college team, right? We have one major Power 5 team in the whole state, and almost everyone roots for the Razorbacks, to the point that you'll see traffic patterns change in a casino or at a movie theater or in restaurants when they're on TV. It is just, I would say it is almost a form of religion to the state, right? Just passionate. So we aligned ourselves very quickly with the Arkansas Razorbacks. And so you'll see Saracen signage throughout the stadium. You'll see it at baseball. You'll see it at basketball. With the hiring of John Calipari, Arkansas's basketball program has just been the talk of sports. In fact, the day of the national championship in basketball this year, that game was not the top news in basketball. It was Arkansas poaching Calipari from Kentucky, right? So we live and breathe sports here, but you will see Saracen's name across everything and anything Razorback. It gave us a tremendous introduction for the brand. And then essentially what we did was hired a bunch of folks to hit different generational points to speak for our product. So you got Joe Klein. Joe Klein played with Michael Jordan and Larry Bird. He was a Bull and a Celtic, right? You've got Darren McFadden, who everybody knows. U.S. Reed, who has probably the most famous shot in Razorback history. And on and on and on. We got Pat Bradley from ESPN in to do stuff for us. And so we just flooded television with essentially branding ads, familiarity ads. And I knew that what we had done worked when I began to get these Google News alerts. And I think we all get them, right? For our own businesses, you set up a Google News alert, and it would be some weird publication that had nothing to do with gaming. And it would be like an editorial in, Northwest Arkansas, 4 hours from here, where someone would just suppose, what are the chances of this happening? And it wouldn't have anything to do with sports, right? What are the chances of this development happening? Or what are the chances of this bank failing? Or what are I wonder what Bet Saracen's line would be. So we became this sort of eponymous thing, right? In Arkansas, people refer to sports betting as, where's Bet Saracen on that? And you'll see newspaper columnists writing about politics or writing about business. When they want to say, what are the chances of, they frequently say, I wonder what Bet Saracen's line would be. Now, to be clear, we're not taking bets on current events or business affairs in our state, but I knew, the word eponymous is a long, weird word, but what it means is, like in the South, we call every kind of soda a Coke, right? So a Pepsi's a Coke, a Sprite's a Coke, a Mountain Dew is a Coke. You want a Coke? Yeah, what do you want? Let me have Dr. Pepper. So, the same with Kleenex, the same but with Xerox back in the day. People would say, Xerox this for me, don't copy it. When Bet Saracen became the eponymous term, however you say it, we knew we were doing something right. So the next logical step for us, because we do extremely well with this property, Victor, we'll have a year from now 1 million square feet under roof. There are 2 300-foot cranes just outside building a 15-story tower, a 1,600-seat event center. But we do very well online because with only 3 casinos for 3 million people, there's a lot of opportunity because we're not exactly down the street from a good chunk of people. And so it only made logical sense for us to look to the next step beyond sports betting and take a look at what iGaming might look like in Arkansas. And perhaps that might be a good place for us to talk about the new normal, and something I think your viewers may not be expecting, which is that no matter where you are in the United States, with the exception of Michigan, who is the bright shining star, your state already has iGaming. You just don't realize it.
Yeah. Well, Carl, that leads us into, great turf for, thanks so much. Let me ask you my first question. Oh, just joking. Um, there's a couple record-breaking things in here. What's real interesting, even at our last show in Anaheim, I was approached by some of these DFS 2.0 companies,
Oh,
you know
yeah.
what I mean, that are
Oh,
still
yeah.
out there. And the other one is Sweepstakes Gaming. Now, that's kind of involved in what you guys have done here. You guys have taken this gray area and, you read about these Australian billionaires like the
Oh, yeah.
guy that owns Steak or the guys who own Chumba. I believe they're 2 separate guys, but they're both from Australia.
Yeah.
Now, tell us a little bit, what motivated you to go this way and what exactly am I talking about? Because I have no idea. No, I'm joking. Can you explain to our audience what exactly I'm talking about? Because
I think the most important thing I can say today, and Victor knows it too, he's already kind of alluded to it, but the most important thing I can say is that you already have iGaming. If you're watching us from California, you don't have sports betting, but you kind of do. We'll talk about that in a second. You don't have iGaming. Oh, you absolutely do. So since we're just going to be wide open here, we'll talk about them. Normally when I do press, I don't name the online casinos, the sweepstakes casinos, because I don't want folks to download them. I just don't, right? I think it's bad. But let's just name names. So you mentioned Chumba. So Chumba Casino is probably the big dog in this space. And you're right, they're Australian based. So the federal government, if you listen to what they've had to say, they make all sorts of amazing accusations about VGW. VGW is Virtual Gaming World, right? So let's get it right. Virtual Gaming World is the parent company of Chumba and half a dozen other monikers. They use something called the sweepstakes provisions, which are a really obscure rule put out by the Federal Trade Commission. Basically what it is you remember the old Publishers Clearinghouse where they come around with a check and, you send this in, and it's the federal provision that enables something like Publishers Clearinghouse. And they have taken that and they have found a way to run iGaming for real money. And it's confusing and it's complicated. And most states have enough trouble regulating the business in their state, or to a certain extent, trying to figure out if this machine in the back of a gas station that is kind of in a gray area is or is not legal. They can't figure out the parameters of that. So the idea of policing something on the internet is just not something most gaming regulators are doing. And I don't fault them. I used to work for the government. And in fact, the gaming regulator was one of the commissions that I worked with. And, prosecuting illegal gambling was really more the world of the state police than it was the gaming regulator. So you're going to take a regulator in a place like Arkansas or Louisiana or Mississippi or anywhere. Maybe it's a tribal gaming authority. How in the world are they going to start policing the internet or even, frankly, be aware of what's on the internet? So let me tell you what's on the internet. Today, if you're on an iPhone, you can go to the App Store. If you're on an Android device, you can go to the Google Play Store and you can download Chumba Casino or Lucky Land or McLuck or dozens of copycats. You've probably heard of these because if you read casino press at all, you'll invariably end up on an affiliate marketing site. And these are sites that are paid a piece of what you play. And you'll see them all show up or whatever state you're sitting in as you're listening to me blabber on. Just Google real money casino online, your state, Indiana, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Oklahoma, where you'll be just deluged with the Google results, directing you to go to a website or go to an app and play. You say, well, how in the world is this possible that people fight so hard to turn on online gaming, but it's already here? They do something very shrewd, and I'll try to make this as simple as I can. They operate on something like a Candy Crush model. And it works like this. So Victor, you sign up to Toomba and you can go into a slot machine parlor on your iPhone. You go in there and they give you $1 million in funny money to play with. Call them 1,000,000 points. And you spend just like you're in a social casino, free to play or whatever. When you run out of money, they say, hey, Victor, you want to buy some more points? You want to buy some more of our currency? Just like Candy Crush, right? Or any other game. You run out of lives. They say you want to buy some more lives. And you say, sure, yes. The window pops up and it says, would you like to buy 1,000,000 points and $100? 2 million points and $200? 3 million points, $300. And the price, by the way, is 100, 200, and 300. So let's say you buy 1,000,000 points and $100 for $100. They say, for this to be gambling, you have to have basis in the bet. And Victor, you didn't buy that $100 in free play. We gave that to you. That was free. What you bought were the points. So you can gamble the points or you can gamble the real money. And that's it. That's the loophole they're exploiting. And so for them to say this isn't gambling may be technically legal under a really expensively lawyered version of the sweepstakes rules. But let's talk about what happens when you leave that pop-up window and you click, you pay for it, and you're done. You go right back to that same slot machine you were paying, and you were met with a pop-up window that says, hey, Victor, thanks for your purchase. Would you like to play with points or real dollars? You say, real dollars? Man, you're spending that slot machine with cash that you can then withdraw right to your checking account if you would like. Again, their argument is kind of hard to explain, but it's really this simple. They say, you're never buying the money we're giving you. We're giving you that for free. You don't have basis in the bet, and so it's not gaming. These apps do extraordinarily well. What do I mean by extraordinarily well? Well, VGW in the first quarter of this year did about $2 billion. And that was 58% growth over the same quarter the year before. Now, I don't know about y'all. If there's any casino in America that is doing 58% growth, whoever runs that place needs a raise, because there's nobody does 58% growth. Our sports book is really a star in the space. It doesn't have anything to do with me. It's because we have a hell of a team here doing it. We'll do 30% growth in our sports book, and we are an anomaly, one of the best performing sports books in the country. But that 30% growth is because of organic user acquisition. But 58% growth and $2 billion a quarter. I was at an Eilers conference in Vegas when they said, how many people in this room have heard of Toomba? There were probably 200 of us in there. About 5 people raised their hands. I was one of them, and I was real proud because there was only like 5 people in the room, and I turned around to make sure our CFO saw I knew. And I remember what Eilers said. He said, it's the biggest gaming company you've never heard of, and it is the biggest threat to your business, whether you realize it or not. So, Victor, we began to dive into what is a sweepstakes casino and where does the money go. And we found, again, the federal government ties them to money laundering. They refer to them as a criminal organization. There is a federal report that associates these sweepstakes casinos with even terrorism. And when I read that, I thought, wow, they went terrorism. They didn't just say kidnapping or like they went to the big T, right? I don't know what's left after that. Interestingly, even the Philippines recognized the danger of this. And the Philippines just a few weeks ago said they're making a priority out of stopping these online organizations. And the Philippines made no bones about linking them to China. And in a state like Arkansas, where there is a strong red state desire to quote unquote kick out China, we're seeing it in all kinds of places with, agricultural land that's purchased by the Chinese or anything else. There's this policy note that waves through our state about quote kick China out. And whether you like that or whether you don't, you want to sail your ship the way the wind's blowing. And for us, we do believe they're tied to bad folks, and the prevailing winds are kick China out. So because the facts were on our side, we made it very clear that the sweepstakes casinos are an existential threat to our businesses. They have no regard for whether you're 13 or 23 or 33 when you're betting. You have no consumer protections. GLI isn't checking these games. There's no certainty that they pay. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but all of the benefits of regulated gaming, that the machine actually will pay you, that you can actually get your money when you win. I mean, all those things do not exist with sweepstakes casinos, yet we're seeing them grow at rates like 58%. So, for example, if we've got anybody in Oklahoma watching this that depends on the Dallas market, I'm going to tell you something. This is in the Dallas market. If you build $1 billion casino on the southern border of Oklahoma, designed not to grab folks from Durant or Medill or, you know, wherever, you're hunting for Dallas customers. Dallas customers know about this. And this is an existential threat to your business in Oklahoma today. And the same can be said of anybody else.
What does their customer base look like? Is it younger, older?
It's a mix of everything.
This?
You know, and some of it is a bit of a black box. We only really have numbers on VGW because Eilers somehow, some way is able to make, you know, statements about where they are. But, you know,
I just don't know what the appeal of playing these are. I mean, what do you get out of it?
I would not encourage you to play one, but I will tell you, once you get inside, the payment processing provisions are really pretty seamless. So this is going to be real nerdy stuff. Y'all just bear with me for a moment. But if we've got folks watching who have sports books or are in online gaming in some way, they know that the 3 most difficult letters in online gaming are RMG, real money gaming. So if you're online and involved in real money gaming, it's just a whole nother stack of paperwork in terms of due diligence. And I don't care if you are opening a checking account for your business, or if you are, I don't know, trying to buy Google AdWords. If you click that box, yes, we're engaged in RMG, it makes everything complicated. Well, because they're exploiting this loophole in the sweepstakes rules, they actually can say with a straight face, this isn't RMG. And as a result, their payment processing flow is simpler. Everything is simpler for them because they're sneaking in by saying, oh, we're not RMG. Now, I know this sounds like it's a whine fest. That is not my point. This is a 3-alarm fire that everyone should pay attention to, because unless you're in Michigan, and we can talk about that in a minute, Michigan stopped them. But unless you're in Michigan, every other state in the country needs to be worried about this. We looked at it and thought, all right, this is an existential threat to our business. And then we thought, iGaming makes sense. I mean, it really does. Sports betting has made sense. You think about just over the last 4 or 5 years, and there's nothing new or insightful I'm about to say here. How's that for a introduction? But we do everything on our phones, right? 80 to 90% of mobile traffic is on, or web traffic's on a mobile device. You know, 10 years ago, I had a couple of apps on my phone, but now it's like there's an app for everything. There's an app for the room key for your hotel room, right? I mean, everything is app-based in this world now. And so, you know, the idea that we would gamble online with our phones is not that far a stretch. We already shop online. We already bank online. We already do everything online. I will caution you that if you are engaging in business with somebody like VGW, you are sharing not only all kinds of details, but your financial documents with some nebulous actor with servers in Malta and an office in Australia and probably got some Chinese money in the mix. And again, there's not really much anybody can do to stop it. I have no doubt this is something that a good chunk of our watchers are very aware of, and some of them have never heard of. But VGW is here, and it's here in Arkansas in a big way. And our goal, first and foremost, is to replace them. So I've long believed that a casino has 3 real obligations. And I say this is a commercial casino. It's different on sovereign land. But on a commercial casino, when you're subject to the jurisdiction of the state, you have 3 real obligations. The first is to hire a bunch of folks and take care of them. Jobs matter everywhere. And we've got about 800 folks. We're an employer of choice, and they're like family. Folks are well taken care of. Quapaw Nation is an incredible employer, and we're the employer of choice in the region. So first obligation of a casino, hire folks and pay them well. Second obligation of a casino is pay a bunch of gaming taxes to the state, right? Just revenue. Third obligation of a casino, perhaps the most important, is keep the money in the local economy. Because in a void, gambling doesn't go away. It just goes to another state. In Arkansas, it would go to Louisiana, it would go to Mississippi, it would go to Missouri, or it would go to Oklahoma. So in a void, you're just dumping that money out of your local economy. Well, what are we doing with VGW? We're not worried about money going to Oklahoma or Louisiana or Mississippi or Missouri. The money is going to China. It's going to Australia. It's going to Lord knows where. And the federal government tells us that much of that money is being used against us as a nation, right? It's crazy. So we looked at it and said, all right, if we can replace what VGW is doing, will we make some money? Sure. But my response, even to the most conservative legislators, when we talked about this, is, would you rather an Arkansas company who employs folks, pays gaming taxes, is a good corporate citizen, would you rather we make the money, or folks who don't like us in another country, who have no rules, no regs, no standards, no consumer protection, don't care if you're 13 years old, make the money, right? And what I was told by some very conservative members of the legislature was basically this: we don't really like it either way. But if the choice is y'all do it with regulation and tax and consumer protection and make sure kids aren't doing it, or they keep doing it now and we get nothing, that's kind of a no-brainer, because it sounds like just shutting it off is not feasible. And it's not. So that's how we got into it, right? It was really under that three-legged stool. And of course, we'll hire folks, we reinvest in the property, and we'll pay an enormous amount of gaming taxes. But if the real goal of turning on gaming in a given jurisdiction is to keep the money local, you worry about the money going out of state. To hell with out of state. With VGW, it leaves the continent and it's never coming back.
First of all, Carlton, thanks so much. I mean, there was a lot there. Let me first by saying, I've been approached by a lot of companies that say, why aren't you doing sweepstakes? Why aren't you doing DFS 2.0? And you guys really are the first ones that have taken this and moved forward. And I could see why some people are intimidated about it. Now, one of the interesting things about this and the way this is being sold in Arkansas is that you've tied it with the Razorbacks, or what they call the Arkansas Edge, which is the CIL or NIL, excuse me, company for University of Arkansas. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah. And
So now this is interesting. I mean, here you've taken this and you've tied it with the school, and a lot I've been reading is, when we first saw it, they were talking about a 50-50 raffle, and then all of a sudden sweepstakes game comes. So help us understand a little bit more about where the 50-50 raffle comes in, the NIL, the Razorbacks, just a little.
Here's some brutal honesty for you.
There you go. It's the hat, right?
Oh yeah, the hat. No, the brutal
Okay,
honesty. The NIL idea wasn't ours. It's brilliant, but it wasn't ours. I'd love to tell you we cooked it up, but that actually came from a state senator, a very prominent state senator who is from Northwest Arkansas near the Razorbacks. And it went a little something like this. He called me one afternoon in late June, and he said, hey, that thing that you and I've been talking about displacing the bad guys online with y'all and Oaklawn and Southland, the three casinos in Arkansas. He said, is there a way that we could do something to run drawings or something like that on a 50-50 to help the NIL funds? And I'll tell you what I told him. I said, I think so. Give me maybe 20 minutes to check. So I read the lottery amendment. I read the charity raffle amendment, and both of those are a no-go, right? So under the auspices of the lottery, it can't be done. Very tight parameters on that. The money can only be used for operation and scholarships. Charity raffle statutes apply in very limited scope, but if you go in and you get a charity raffle permit, the kind of thing we're all familiar with, whether it's in a church basement or a Ducks Unlimited barbecue or fish fry, and you're raffling off stuff, that's a limited use permit for charity. That would prevent this if they were to try to do it themselves. But that's not what we're talking about. We talked about running this as a casino game. So I called the state senator back and I said, not only yeah, but hell yeah, we can do it. If we can get these changes in place to the casino gaming rules to allow games of chance on the phone, which is really the only thing we would need. Because Arkansas, since 2019, has had poker within the four borders of the state online. Since 2022, we've had sports within the four borders of the state online. Today, we only have tables and slots within the four walls of the casino. So you really have this mix. You have some types of games that are legal within the four borders and some types of games that are legal within the four walls. So if we can get all games legal within the four borders, just like the state has already done with poker and sports, we can run a 50-50 drawing. So here's how this works. We, for the wonks on here, the casino folks that know the technicals, we're going to run these 50-50 drawings on a mobile device for every NIL program in the state that wants one. Each drawing will be independent. So the University of Arkansas, which is the dominant force in terms of sports here, the Razorbacks will have one. University of Central Arkansas, the Bears, will have one. Arkansas State University, the Red Wolves, they'll have one. And on and on and on. You know, in where we sit in Pine Bluff, University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, the Golden Lions, they'll have one. And all the needs are different, right? The Razorbacks need in the SEC is massive. It's in the millions. But if you're operating in a lower conference where the expectations are less, you know, another 5 or 10,000 a month might make a difference, or 5 or 10,000 a week. For the Razorbacks, they need more like $1 million a month for it to make a difference. But everyone's needs are different to compete, depending upon what sorts of conferences they're in. You know, and it's kind of like in California, right? I mean, USC's needs are very different than, you know, a small independent college competing in, you know, a division that I've probably never heard of in a conference I'm not aware of. And I don't mean that to be dismissive, but everybody has needs. So we took these and we melded them together. So the need for iGaming speaks for itself, right? It makes sense. Keep the money here, etc. But what we figured out was that the idea that the casinos need to make more money is not a very sympathetic political argument. It's not that persuasive. Yeah, oh, sure. I mean, who feels sorry for the casino? So it's true that this is a good policy measure. And that's all we began with, though, was displace the illegal offshore casinos with us, make a bunch of tax money, protect consumers. That was in March. And then in June, July, this NIL thing came along. And I've often described it as the caboose we put on the back of this train. But in the last 60 days, we have noticed that the caboose is pulling the train, right? Because
I was going to say,
so much attention on the NIL component. I will tell you, I've told our regulators this as we've discussed it privately. If the only reason y'all want to do this is for NIL, you're missing the point. And I realize that's somewhat flippant, but again, I'm very direct and very honest with our regulators too. The reason to authorize interactive gaming, and the reason we call it interactive gaming, by the way, is that's the rule that already authorizes poker for real money statewide in Arkansas, Rule 5, interactive gaming. The reason to change Rule 5 to allow more games on the phone is not for NIL. It's because people are being scammed right now by bad actors overseas, and that money is not taxed. You need to replace the bad guys with the Arkansas licensed casinos. But the fact that we can help raise money for NIL along the way makes it a no-brainer. It's the cherry on top. And it's one of these funny things, Victor, though, where you've got this whole, you know, meat and potatoes of information, and everybody's focused on the garnish on the side. And I guess it's a hell of a garnish. But the NIL drawings are modeled after something we saw in Edmonton. So in Edmonton, I guess it's Alberta is the broader province, they do geo-fenced 50-50 drawings for the Oilers, for the hockey team. And I'll let your viewers Google this themselves and they'll see. Look at the winners gallery at the 50-50s that the Edmonton Oilers are doing. Most drawings are 7-figure checks to the winner.
Wow.
Now, if you've got a 7-figure check to the winner, you got a 7-figure check to the cause, the charity, the, you know, whatever we're giving money to this week. I mean, you'll find some that are 200,000 and 300,000, but most of them are $1 million, $2 million.
Are they running that for days on end, or is
Yes.
it just into the, oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Because a lot of the 50-50s, you know, I'm familiar with, and I think people see are at, you know, at sporting events. It could be, you know, high school games, or
Sure.
For Indian country, you know, they're very popular at powwows.
Oh, yeah.
Cultural gatherings. And I gotta say, for the most part, they're the bane of a lot of regulators' existence, because, like you said, some of these 50-50, when the amounts start getting 6 figures, and now you're saying 7 figures, that's some serious money. And a lot of time, there's a lot of oversight on this. It's very cash intensive. And so I can see, Arkansas is concerned with it. The legislation, it hasn't passed yet, right? You guys are still trying to get this through.
So let me walk you through the process, and it's
Is the
identical.
governor in favor? Does anyone even know what she's thinking?
Give me a moment, I'll get to that. So
Okay.
The process is pretty simple. So Arkansas passed casino gaming in 2018. Before that, we had 2 racinos operating electronic games of skill. A lot of people are familiar with these sort of variants of slot machines, and it wasn't class 2 or anything like that. But just like in class 2, it looks like a slot machine, sounds like a slot machine, feels like a slot machine. Oh, that's bingo, right? Electronic games of skill look like a slot machine, feel like a slot machine. That's not a slot machine. We had this quasi slot-like world here for a long time. 2018, in no small part due to the political contributions and influence of the Quapaw Nation, but also the Cherokee Nation, Arkansas passed casino gaming, Amendment 100. Amendment 100 has really broad definitions for gaming, and a 50-50 drawing definitely meets those definitions. I mean, to be a casino game in Arkansas, essentially it needs to be something for money with cards, dice, mechanical, electromechanical, or electronic equipment. That's it. So a 50-50 drawing done on an app using an electronic random number generator absolutely meets the definition of a casino game. So we thought, all right, we can do this. This makes sense. There are some folks that say, well, you can't do this because the charity raffle provisions prohibit the use of electronic payments. Well, they would if we were a charity or if this was a raffle being done under the statutes of the charity raffle provisions. But we intend to operate this as a casino game as regulated by Amendment 100. It's not a charity. The Edge is an entity. It's not a charity. It's not a C3. We'll be running it on their behalf. Number 2, how do we make gaming policy in Arkansas? How would we effectuate what I'm talking about? Well, Amendment 100 said the Racing Commission, the historic name of the casino regulator, they will promulgate rules to implement Amendment 100. And we've been very close to that. And many times we've gone to the commission with suggestions about rule changes, and when they made sense, we've moved forward. I'll give you a quick example. We talked in the beginning about sports betting. So how did we get sports betting statewide in Arkansas? Because in 2018, 2019, it was in the 4 walls of the casino only. We went to the Racing Commission and asked for a rule change. And if you think about rules, they're kind of like baby laws, right? So they're promulgated by a commission, and then they're ratified by a subcommittee of the legislature. That's how it works in Arkansas. We asked for a rule change that said, this thing that y'all said is okay only in the 4 walls of the casino, let's make it okay within the 4 borders of the state. DraftKings, FanDuel, they threw everything they could at it. They sent lobbyists and lawyers down from the East Coast. And in the end, the Racing Commission said 7-0. Yes, we like your plan. Your plan where Arkansas casinos are first. Same thing here. So to people that say this is not legal, I have 2 responses. One, the charity raffle statutes don't apply because we're not a charity and we're not running this under a $100 permit like you would a church raffle. But number 2, we seek to change the rule at the commission level to make it okay under the casino gaming rules. So what do we need to do? We need to go to the Racing Commission and have a hearing about this. They'll take a 30-day public comment period. Then we hope they vote to pass these rules. They go to legislative ratification, and we're done. It's a 45 to 60-day process if it's done correctly. And that's where we are. So where is the governor? Now, to be clear, I have total respect for the governor. I know her. I've supported her. I think she's done a fine job with our state. That gets me in trouble when I say that. I generally don't talk about politics, even though I used to work in it. But she's done a fine job with her state. And I've consistently said this, and I'll say it here. For someone like Governor Sanders to make the right call here, she has to have the right information. If you don't have the right information, it's very difficult to make the right call. And one of the casinos in Arkansas, one that's been around for over 100 years as a horse racing track, has been the single biggest impediment in getting this done. fact, this morning I was writing a response to an op-ed they had in the Sunday paper over the weekend, which was full of so many half-truths and mistruths. And I'm not the sort of person to accuse somebody of disinformation, but just disinformation. I believe that the governor to date has been provided bad counsel. And I think once she sees that the charity raffle statutes don't apply and a lot of the smoke screen that another competitor has put up is inapplicable, I think she'll make the right call. And the fact that she's a huge Razorback fan doesn't hurt either. But let's talk about that casino that is objecting. It's Oaklawn Park, a longstanding horse track in Hot Springs, and they run one of the best horse racing operations in America. They're the kings of thoroughbreds in this part of the country. Really do a great job. They were once enormously innovative. The concept of historic horse racing, instant horse racing, was really created there. They had a brilliant general manager for a very long time, a guy named Eric Jackson, who just brilliant. He's in the Arkansas Sports Hall of Fame for what he did to essentially save horse racing. But that innovative spirit is long gone from Oaklawn. And today, I think they're saying, hold on, defense. I think I wrote in this response, they have a insistent longing for the status quo. Because there was a time when they had no competition. There was no tribally owned casino to compete with in Central Arkansas. I have to think, Victor, the fact that we book 3 times as much sports betting on the internet as they do, despite the fact that they were 100 years ahead of us in brand recognition, and they'd been booking horse bets on the phone since 2014, must play into this, right? Because for them to be opposed to this is basically illogical. I just have to assume they know they get their tails whooped on the internet today. So why turn something else on the internet on for us to get our tails whooped on? And I don't know about you, but one of the things I think you've got to do in business is never be mad at your money. And on something that they might have 10, 15, 20% of, that's incremental growth. But I think pride is getting in their way. And the trick here in terms of timeline is just as the objections come up, we rebut them. I mean, a classic example, one of the objections they said was, oh, well, this will only benefit the counties that have casinos in them. None of the money goes to the state. It's actually not true. 55% of the revenue goes to the state. So we've been playing whack-a-mole with our actors in the state who once were I call them the OGs, the original gamblers, right? Not the original gangsters, the original gamblers of Arkansas. They were innovators and survivors. And today they're looking in the rearview mirror instead of looking out the front windshield. It doesn't require legislation. It requires a rule change and then ratification by the legislature. That being said, if we get mired down in this process where Oaklawn continues to block shutting off the offshore casinos and helping the NIL, then we're fully prepared to go to the legislature just after the first of the year when they come into session. And this could be accomplished by a legislative act as well. Either one is fine. And our idea speaks for itself. I mean, I'll show anyone anything. We're transparent operators. Our arguments are built on facts and independent research. I'll give you one. Oaklawn last week said they were concerned about the health of the Arkansas Scholarship Lottery. Since when is a longstanding casino ever worried about lottery, right? They hate them. They viewed them as competition. In fact, did everything they could to make sure the lottery didn't pass here. But today, one of their arguments, which I believe I would have left off because it's hard to read it with a straight face, is that, oh, this will decimate the lottery. So again, our problem is frankly just getting another one of the Arkansas casinos on board. And the amount of delays they have created for us are difficult to explain. I believe firmly that had Oaklawn not stuck their necks out and said no, we'd actually already been live. But I would rather be us than them because the momentum is on our side, the facts are on our side, and it's football season, and NIL is on everyone's lips. So that's where we are.
It's just absolutely brilliant on so many different levels because, dealing with an issue like sweepstakes gaming, and you see skill-based gaming is having its day in the papers. You see in Virginia and Missouri, Kansas, you see a lot of these games, and you're starting to see the big pushback from this. So I think what you guys have done is just absolutely brilliant in tying yourself in with the University of Arkansas and being very proactive bringing the money back into the community. So what, it just, when I saw it, I'm sure everybody in the industry was like the same way. And actually the reason why I asked you, and by the way, it was an instant yes. Carlton goes, absolutely. And so then, but this is just so amazing on so many different levels. But what do you think it's going to have a national impact with the NIL?
And
You
So
know,
we've
do
seen
you
a
think
couple of
people already have to be knocking on your doors? Hey, how did you think about this? What are you doing?
Yeah, I've had NIL collective folks call from all kinds of states. And interestingly, Victor, we saw in Florida. Now this one's not going to perform that well. We had our folks run it down, and the website looks like I built it, which in other words means it's not good. But the University of Florida is doing an online 50-50 in Florida. And they are doing it under charity raffle provisions on kind of a wonky website that doesn't have an app. I think the funds will be pretty anemic. We looked more again to that Edmonton model. And seriously, y'all, if you're watching this, when you're done, Google Edmonton Oilers 50-50 and look at all of those checks. Just to level set, there are 4.3 million people in Alberta. That's a geo-fenced, must be in Alberta 50-50 drawing. And they're doing most weeks $1 million or more. Some weeks they have a crappy week and they only raise 200,000 or 400,000. That's still huge money, right? There's 4.3 million people in Alberta. There's 3 million people in Arkansas. About the same percentage or adult population. So if Alberta can do 7 figures more than they do 6, I don't think it's a stretch to think Arkansas can do 250,000. We can do a quarter of what they do with, basically 75% of their population. I think I'm underestimating these numbers. But Florida is doing it. I think this would be a natural fit for Pennsylvania, where they already have online gaming, for Penn State and other groups. I think it would be a natural fit in Michigan. I think it would be a natural fit in a lot of places. But I want to say this about Michigan really quickly, because I've made a couple of passing compliments about them without explaining. Michigan is the state that kicked VGW out. Hard stop. And if you don't believe me, I know I keep saying this, but go look at the facts yourselves. Google VGW Michigan. And there's a bunch of articles that'll come up, or VGW exits Michigan. The one that comes to mind first was an SBC America's piece. But what VGW, Chumba's parent company, did was amazing. So in Michigan, they have online gaming, which means legitimate casinos that you can go visit if you have a problem that you have heard of, that that you have a friend may work there. They run online gaming. At the same time, the state of Michigan sent a bunch of nasty letters to foreign actors like VGW that said, go away. But it took both. And after enough time, and it was really just a matter of about a year or two, VGW said, to hell with this. We're out. We got guys in windbreakers sending us nasty letters. We got people shaking down our consultants and our banks. They're looking for nexus in the United States to really get hostile with us. The heat is on us from the regulator, from the law enforcement agents. And because the casinos are doing it, month over month, our revenue is declining. Chumba, by the way, is a master marketer online. They've got Ryan Seacrest out front for their products. They spend as much on Google AdWords and Reddit and YouTube as just about anybody you can imagine. Once you start Googling this stuff, by the way, you'll find they will just hammer your phone with advertisements for sweepstakes. But in Michigan, I think VGW said, look, we're making less money every month, and we're spending the same enormous amount on digital marketing. To hell with this. Let's go to a state where they don't know we exist, and we'll go make money there. And I think, believe it or not, I think it was a FanDuel executive. Let me say something nice about FanDuel. There was a FanDuel executive who said the business model of these sweepstakes guys is to assume the regulator isn't paying attention, make as much money in the space as they can before they get kicked out, and then move on to a state that's also not paying attention. So in Michigan, this is the last thing I'll say about it, when they left with a surrender flag. They actually issued a press release that said, hey, Michigan players, you have 90 days to get all your money out of your accounts. We are leaving the state of Michigan. And let's not devalue that for a minute, right? Because I believe that they are a criminal organization. I believe it's a form of organized crime. I believe what the federal government is saying, that they are linked to money laundering, terrorism, you name it. They said, peace out. We're gone. Bye, y'all. And it would be like if the cartel put out a press release that said, "Attention, Arkansas, we are no longer shipping fentanyl into your state." Now, am I comparing VGW to the cartel? No. But what I am saying is they're both criminal organizations or criminal linked organizations, according to the government. And they saw in Michigan that they were displaced by legitimate operators who cared about age, who cared about taxation, who cared about problem gambling, who cared about consumer protection. They weren't making any money anymore. And they said, we're gone. We're going to another state. And that's all we proposed to do. We know it worked in Michigan. Delaware announced last week they're going to try the same thing to see if it works there. And that's all, right? Replace the bad guy with a good guy. And I'm not saying I'm a good guy. I'm saying we're a licensed, regulated entity. Replace the offshore bad guy with a good guy. That's the only way you'll stop them. Because what are you going to send a cease and desist to Malta and expect them to respond? I mean, Michigan got it right, and that's all we want to do. But on top of that, we want to raise a bunch of money for the NIL.
Well, it goes, you're starting to see more of the governments, the local governments pushing back. You're starting to see Bovada getting in a lot of trouble. You're seeing more legislation. People are going, no more gray market gaming. You're seeing the pushback against sweepstakes gaming. And by the way, I'm famously ignorant towards sports, so I don't know what 50-50 raffles are. Jason, what is
Are
for
you
dumb
serious,
people like me?
Victor?
Jason,
Jason,
I'm
educate
stupid
the man.
that way.
Victor, if it makes you feel any
All
better, over the last 2 months, if I had $1 for every time I've explained to 50-50, but we'll let him do it.
I'm from
But I have
California.
learned
We
that
don't
people
know.
absolutely know what it is, or they've never heard of the damn thing. And there's no one in the middle.
Well, but Victor, it's
What,
happening.
hey, but
right
hold
under
on.
your
What
nose.
about the meat sweepstakes in Minnesota? Can we turn that into gambling?
The
Oh,
meat-
you don't know about the meat sweepstakes? Oh, they do meat raffles. That's it. Meat raffles
Meat
in
raffle.
Minnesota. Can we turn a meat raffle into gaming? Okay, go ahead. Next. Go ahead,
I'm gonna
Jason.
write that down.
Yeah.
Meat raffle.
Listen, I'm famously stupid for sports and stuff like
That's like
that.
the
I
ham
only watch
raffle,
games.
isn't it? But,
Yeah.
when
No,
a ham-
they do meat raffles in Minnesota. So
What kind of meat? We've got a Kobe beef license at Saracen. We serve Japanese beef. Can you win Kobe in the meat raffle?
They do meat
Now,
raffles.
Victor,
It's the
but
coolest
these
thing.
50-50s are, I'm telling you, they do them at Pechanga Resort Casino, occasion. I'm sure that they do. And they do them at concerts. They do them at music concerts. I've seen it. You've seen them everywhere. Yeah, you can just walk right past them and not even know what's going on. But like I said, Victor, some guy's selling you a ticket for, $1, $5, and the pot builds up and up. And if you
So
win,
just a regular raffle, just a regular
yeah,
raffle
you get
with the
you get
ticketable
50%
ticket.
of it, and the other 50% hopefully goes to where it's supposed to go. But that's the key of it. And like I said, they're highly cash intensive. I see the one here at the Washington Wizards Stadium during Wizards games, NBA, and they do it at the end of the game, and generally the pot's anywhere from 30 to 50 grand. And
So we wanted to avoid the cash component, right? That's always a big if. We wanted to avoid the in-stadium, in-arena component because you really constrict your potential players. And so the easiest thing to do is put it on an app. So on an app, you have all digital payments. We have KYC. We can issue a W-2G to the winners. We can do all the things we casino guys know have to be done. But most importantly, we have GLI approving our random number generator, and there's integrity in the game.
the key. Right.
So the trick is this, and this is sort of casino lingo. It's a zero hold game for the casino. We run it as a zero hold. So the 50-50 name, Victor gets its name because 50% goes to the winner, the guy with the right ticket, 50% goes to the cause. So the explanation is sort of in the name.
Yeah.
Right. So, in a statewide basis, we've seen what Alberta did, right? So, Edmonton is doing with 1 million more people than Arkansas, $1 million most weeks. And so we start looking at numbers that aren't 50 or 60 grand. They're 250 or 260 grand. Jason, they're numbers you would never see in an in-person 50-50. Folks in our part of the state know 50-50 because the Cowboys are doing them in Dallas, or the Astros are doing them in Houston. They've long been done at Chiefs and Cardinals games in Missouri. But this business of going online means in a state like Arkansas, you could be 3 hours from the stadium and you could be a part of the 50-50. Because we know there are more people watching it on TV in Arkansas than there are in the stadium. It only makes sense.
Yeah,
And
you know,
what-
and as a Californian, you know, it wasn't until I moved to like South Dakota in the 90s that I really saw college football in Nebraska and the Cornhuskers and the cultural significance and what it means. And so I'm sure in Arkansas with the Razorbacks and stuff, this revenue that could be generated for the team would make you guys a stronger team and ensure, you know, continuing success within the program, right? And bringing in new players and recruiting younger people that can have an effect on the team. So this is what it does. The effect of the bottom line is it just creates better football for Arkansas.
My standard line is that when the Hogs are winning, people smile a little more freely and they all seem to stand up a little taller. So it's like a little bit of a mood supplement for the whole state. But
that is the most Arkansas thing I've heard today.
Well, you know, I grew up in Oklahoma, and I will tell you the same thing is true of the Sooners, the Cowboys as well, but especially the Sooners, right? I mean, the Sooner Nation, when OU's winning, people just smile a little more freely. They just seem a little happier. And the unfortunate thing about NIL, love it or hate it, is that it's not going away. Any changes that we see in terms of revenue sharing agreements, things that kick in, you know, if you look at the NCAA's class action settlement, all of these just mean the money may come from different pockets, but it's still got to be there. And I'll give you a quick story. Arkansas famously is home to a lot of very wealthy people. So the Waltons live here. The Tysons live here, you know, the biggest protein producers in the world. J.B. Hunt, and on and on and on. Folks like Stevens, the investment bankers, I mean, tremendously influential families. And they give very large amounts to the university, philanthropic amounts with lots of zeros on them. And then we have lots of people who give what I would call transactional donations to the university. And I don't mean to discount them because everything that's given is laudable, but just enough to keep your seats or just enough to get your parking pass, right? So give to get. Still a gift and still laudable, but give to get. And then you have the people way up here who are writing these monstrous checks. But what we don't have is something in the middle that is a quality ongoing revenue stream to help our program. And we view this NIL 50-50 as a way to do it because you can give. And if you win, you may make a whole bunch of money. If you don't, oh, well, you help the teams fund to go out and retain and recruit great players. So it's sort of a win-win. I actually, in some ways, while we have undervalued what we think we'll do based on Edmonton, I think I'm maybe way low balling it. Because, again, no offense to anything they're doing in Edmonton, but I think the narrative about speaking directly to Razorback fans about something that would benefit the NIL pool that recruits and retains talent may be a more compelling cause, it's the truth, whether you like it or not, than many of the charities that the 50-50 raffles benefit. I think you're right over the target when you're talking to the Razorback fans about an initiative which will help the Razorbacks get better. That may move the needle more than, you know, cancer research or homelessness or a bunch of other incredible causes that need to be funded. But we may be lowballing these numbers.
You know, Carlton, we're almost over, and Jason, I'll let you finish. But you know, I mean, there's just so much brilliance on every single level of assessing a problem, you know, rising up to meet the challenge, and then bringing these type of gamings into the mainstream and having that revenue affect the bottom line, the things that really matter to the people of Arkansas. I'm sure once the football team is a champion, you can move that money into social services program. And by the way, I spent a week in Arkansas once over in West Helena. I worked 1,000 years ago, so I have a soft spot in my heart for Arkansas.
Come back and see us at Saracen. I know we're almost out of time. Let me tell you the elevator pitch on this. If you watch this and you want to tell somebody about it. In Arkansas, we identified a problem. The American Gaming Association says about $5 billion a year is gambled illegally in Arkansas. Problem, $5 billion in illegal gambling. Much of it done online with websites and apps linked to very bad people. Solution, do what Michigan did. Legalize this activity for licensed regulated actors. And the bad guys will leave on their own with a press release. That's it. The problem's $5 billion in illegal gambling. The solution is do what Michigan did. We know it works. And the bonus is we can help NIL. And it's really that simple.
Well,
Nice.
Carlton, we are going to put a whole entire
Yeah.
session at this at IGA at our annual show. So I hope you'll come and visit us in San Diego
Right.
in April. I'd like to thank all of our audience for joining us, Carlton. That was an incredible subject. Jason, I'll give you the last question before we can go. We're late,
No,
but
thanks, Carlton. I mean, this is burgeoning. Everyone's brand new to this, including the colleges and especially the athletes. So we'll keep an eye on this. Arkansas could be, you know, a game changer on this one and breaking new ground on everything. So, but thank you for your time and your knowledge and educating us on this, because it's something, you know, we're going to have to get involved. You know, if you look at Oklahoma, where there are no, the tribes have the market in Oklahoma.
we're coming. You're bringing you back, man. We're not done.
Yeah,
We're coming
yeah, I
back. We
mean,
got to
the
talk
tribes-
Oklahoma. We got to talk
Right.
about so much. We are not even
the-
close to.
the
Well,
tribes-
we never even got to the bogus fantasy sports guys who are offering sports betting in places like Oklahoma. Same
Right.
deal, right?
Yeah,
But if you
So-
take nothing away from this, understand that your state probably already has iGaming as long as you don't live in Michigan. You just don't really realize it. And it's the biggest threat to your gaming operation, whether you want to admit it or not.
right. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Bodmer.
Thank-
All right, guys. We'll see you guys next week. Appreciate Carlton. That was wonderful. I'm getting texts telling me that I don't know anything about 50-50 raffles.
Yeah, I know.
So
on your
Hey,
I know.
Victor, big thanks to the Quapaw Nation who invested
I love
all
are
this
calling
money
me
in
a neighbor.
Go to the high
Arkansas,
school
and they put
football
up with
game
me
this
every day.
Friday. Yeah.
my kid has soccer practice today. I'm pretty sure I'll start
Okay.
seeing it really
Well,
soon. His
Temecula
first
High
game's
School Friday night.
on Saturday. All right, you guys. Thank you. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you, Carlton. Thank you,
Take care.
Jason. Thank you, Lisa. See you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.